Hey everybody, EDGYTIM here. Appreciate everybody just clicking over to watch the latest. Just have a few thoughts for you today, May 14th, and a couple of interesting developments. I just thought I'd give you a few of my thoughts on. First of all, last night, Wednesday the 13th, NCAA announced that they are, to really not anyone's surprise, but they are going to continue the, let's call it, the forced dead period, which started obviously once the whole COVID-19 pandemic began, put us back into a dead period, and we will remain in a recruiting dead period until at least until June 30th. Lots of implications here, which we'll get into. First of all, what that means is you can forget about making unofficial or official visits to campuses, college campuses. That will not happen. In theory, at least at the FBS level, your college one-day camp season is just ended. So you have that fallout, those repercussions, and they're important. Again, so now the college football programs at the FBS level in particular have the spring evaluation period completely washed out. And now, for the most part, we have the entire camp season completely washed out. So, again, has a lot of impact. I think of the guys out there that have made big improvements, that have added 10, 15, 20 pounds from last season, who have greatly maybe improved their speed or some other aspect of their games. They have not been able to show college coaches, I mean, with the exception of maybe some videos, but they haven't seen what these kids can do, and it definitely has an impact. And those are the kids, I think, that really get hurt the most by this. When will it change? Well, if I had that answer, folks, I'd probably have the winning lotto numbers and everything else. So nobody knows. And again, it's we just continue to ride out this pandemic, and that has certainly been a big part of it from a recruiting standpoint. Again, it comes back to families and parents and prospects. What can you do? Again, I'd mentioned one of my earlier videos. I would consider the home video route as far as workouts. I know some kids in particular that I know of, and I think I've retweeted some. Some have made them public. Most have made them just basically texting or emailing links privately directly to college coaches, showing them, in theory, going through a college camp or a college combine portion of it, if you will. Running the 40, shuttles, footwork, agility work, sending that into colleges to at least let them see how you can move. I think I'll do another video soon, maybe getting a little more in depth about a way to go about it. But that's kind of one of the ways that have been suggested. But if we're waiting for college camps, I don't know if they're going to come this summer. As I mentioned, right now it's through June 30th. I know a couple of the mega camps. I know Lindenwood as well as Lake Forest College. They have moved their camps back towards the end of July. You can check both schools for exact dates. But, and again, I think those schools are hanging out hope that, at least and the big issue with those camps is going to be who is going to be allowed to cover them. First of all, are we going to be allowed to have them? Secondly, who is going to be allowed to go cover them from a college coaching standpoint? I cannot, and again, this is pure speculation, but at this point, I would be very surprised if the FBS level coaches would be allowed to go on the road to cover that. Again, it's uncharted waters, so we just don't know. We'll have to see how things shake out, but that would certainly put a dent into some of the mega camps out there, if you will. Again, the big draw always being multiple college coaches in one spot, one location, which benefited certainly players, prospects, as well as the college coaches. So we'll see what happens. Now, there's been some other shakeout. And in case you haven't noticed lately, more and more kids are giving early verbal commitments. And it's been interesting because, I mean, not so much surprising that we're getting commitments at this time of year because, as I mentioned, I mean, once we enacted the early signing period, The process moved ahead even earlier, and we saw really April, May become the old school, November, December. So it's without ever stepping foot on a college campus, it's happened in multiple times here with kids that have committed, and it's just surprising to me because just being on those campuses and seeing what they have to offer and being able to talk to those coaches and get to know them a little bit better, I think is a huge part of this. Higher sought after Power 5 recruits. There are some programs out there that are already in double digits in commits at this point of the year. So they're filling up. And when they start filling up, they certainly have the upper hand when it comes to trying to pressure kids into making commitments. So again, it makes it interesting. Kids haven't even stepped foot on a camp commit and get a chance to visit anywhere, which is true. A lot of these kids, in some cases, kids have gone to a handful of schools in January and a little bit in February, mostly in January, though, during the open period. February gets weird with signing day and the dead period. So most of those visits would have happened sometime in January. Otherwise, a large majority of the kids that had multiple FBS offers didn't get out anywhere. So it's strange. And again, and now with the NCAA extending the dead period, I think what's going to happen is we're going to continue to see more kids make early verbal commitments. They are going to make that decision without seeing and stepping foot on a college campus. Now, I need to clarify, because a lot of these schools are getting creative. They're doing virtual tours, which are basically in a lot of cases just drone footage showing you various locations and facilities and what have you, which is great. It's something that I think was kind of pushed because of this pandemic, and I think it'll be here to stay for sure. But we will see how things transpire. But I definitely have a strong feeling that we are going to continue to see a really big run-up on verbal commitments over the next month or two. And again, it's maybe the higher level profile kids in the 21 class starting to fall in line and make those decisions. But trust me, things are going to continue to work their way down. So if there's a lot of kids out there with maybe lower FBS or high FCS offers, I think they are the ones that are going to start feeling the pressure sooner rather than later when it comes to making early commitments. So very interesting storyline to watch there with all of this, how it's falling, and we'll see what happens. And I think one of the more interesting questions I'm asking kids and recruits now is, what are you going to do this summer? Well, your high school team in Illinois had all the contact days basically taken away. I know it was said when it happened that they would come back and look at everything, but the way things have gone here in this state, I don't see June or July happening from a team standpoint, unfortunately. I think everyone's kind of pointing towards August and saying, okay, hopefully August we can report back. On that level, what another interesting thing that developed about a week ago is the state of Indiana declared and decided that they are going to allow their athletes back July 1st to begin summer activities, which, includes practices, what have you, for the fall sports. Also, interestingly, last night, the state of Wisconsin, their governor's stay-at-home orders and the various emergency orders that were put in place were overturned by the coaches. So now, at least as of right now, Wisconsin has no COVID-19 restrictions whatsoever. So they are, in theory, as of right now, and again, with all this legal stuff, it could change in a heartbeat, but as of right now, Wisconsin as well is quote unquote open for business. So what does that mean from the high school standpoint? Well, I tell you folks, you probably think you would never hear this, but I've heard more rumblings and talk from various parents that are starting to look into potential school options in Northwest Indiana in particular. Would parents really uproot their families and move to Indiana so their kid could play a football season? The casual fan is saying they're out of their minds, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. But those of you that are kind of in the know and know how things go know that, hey, it could happen. So, and again, I would put the same on southern Wisconsin, where people in the northern part of the state, you might see kids pack up and move and head to Wisconsin if it means that they're going to be able to play a season in 2020. We don't know that yet here in Illinois. So I think what's going to happen, in my opinion, is we're going to get to mid-June, maybe late June at the very latest. And if there's no plan in place here in the state of Illinois for when our kids are going to go back, trust me, you are going to see a lot of impact and a lot of people look at various options in the fall out of state, including, as I mentioned, Indiana and Wisconsin. We will see impacts. I think schools in particular on the border, I'm thinking, and again, I'm just throwing names out there, really any of the Chicago schools, because you're not that far from Northwest Indiana. I'm thinking the South suburban schools, schools like TF North, TF South, Thornwood, Thornridge, Thornwood, schools in that area. Thinking a little bit further down to Crete and even further down, going down the state line near areas like Danville, maybe even Champaign and some others where they're not that far away from, say, from the Indiana border. Those schools could definitely be impacted. Other impacts as well, as we talk about what's going on with COVID-19 is, and again, I don't mean to keep harping on this, but it's such a big storyline. I think people want to know about it. So again, that's just kind of what we're dealt with here. But as far as other impacts, I think if you're at a private school, just the impact of the economic fallout of this thing, which continues every single day, people continue to file unemployment in record numbers. That is going to have an impact on the private schools. I don't think there's any question that you're going to see some kids, and probably in some cases more than just a handful of kids, end up having to transfer out because of financial hardships. So lots and lots and lots to unpack with this along here. So again, just some thoughts. Didn't mean to get too heavy on you this morning, but just kind of what we've seen going on here. Don't go away. Stick around. Keep checking the Edgy Nation board, all kinds of stuff. A bunch of rankings are out now. Watch lists are done. Rankings are out. I'm going to dig into that a little bit more. Today, I'm up to almost 40 now. So there's a lot for you to dig into and a lot for you to read. And again, until I'm told otherwise, I'm just going to get ready for football 2020, and we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best. And that goes for you out there as well, for you and your family. Please stay safe. Do what you feel is the best, and continued support. You guys amaze me every single day, and really just energizes me to keep doing more and more and provide as much as I possibly can for you. And just thanks. Stay safe.